Welcome to the Renegade Health Boss Podcast, where we push the boundaries of what's possible in health and wellness. I'm your host, Heather Gray, a certified functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and certified bioenergetic practitioner. And each week we dive deep into the world of physical, mental, spiritual health, biohacking, relationships. But we're not just talking about the basics. I'm bringing you conversations with the true renegades, experts who are challenging the status quo in their fields, breaking barriers, and uncovering the real truth behind what it takes to live an incredible, joy-filled, and optimized life. If you're ready to step out of the ordinary and step into a life of extraordinary health and happiness, you're in the right place. Let's get started on this journey to becoming your own Renegade Health Boss. Before we jump in, let's hear a word from our sponsor.
Dr. Nathan Bryan here with our N101 nitric oxide orally disintegrating tablet. You know, nitric oxide is a gas, so how do we deliver a bioactive gas in a solid dose form? We've created a solid dose form of bioactive gas. This lozenge, which is designed to have a resident time of 5 to 6 minutes. So you take this lozenge, you put it in your mouth, don't chew it, don't swallow it. Let it dissolve. As it's dissolving, it's releasing a certain amount of nitric oxide over a certain period of time. And that release of nitric oxide is designed to recapitulate nitric oxide production and nitric oxide signaling. So if your body can't make nitric oxide for whatever reason, this product delivers it for you. But more importantly, the technology in this lozenge recouples the NOS enzyme, so we improve endothelial function. We improve the body's ability to make nitric oxide on its own. And because it's an orally disintegrating tablet that sits on the top of the tongue and moves around, it's killing the bad bacteria. It's maintaining the diversity of the oral microbiome. We're improving the nitrate-reducing bacteria, so we're improving the oral microbiome. So this product generates nitric oxide and improves the body's ability to make nitric oxide through both pathways, endothelial nitric oxide production through restoration of the oral microbiome. There's no other product on the market that does what this product does. This is an orally disintegrating tablet that releases nitric oxide. We can quantify it, we can detect it, we can verify it. So if your body can't make nitric oxide, we do it for you. N101 activating lozenges. Get it today.
Hey there, everyone. This is Heather Gray, aka the Lyme Boss. Welcome to another amazing episode. And I like working with fast-paced professionals who have mysterious digestive issues, brain fog and fatigue. There's not even a word in the English language for the fatigue that they're experiencing, right? Could it be undiagnosed Lyme disease and mold toxicity? I know it was for me. But even though my name is the Lyme Boss, these programs are for anyone with any kind of a fill-in-the-blank issue, right? It can be cancer, autoimmune, diabetes, Alzheimer's, you name it, because we're looking at the root causes of these issues to begin with. And it's pretty blanket. When you address the foundation, right, a lot of things get better. So don't think that just because my name is Lyme Boss, this is Lyme related, because it actually could be related for everybody. And today we're talking on a subject near and dear to my own heart, because as an adult, I was collecting autoimmune diseases like trading cards, and a lot of it came from early childhood trauma. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today with Dr. Keesha Ewers. Hopefully I pronounced that right.
You got it.
I butcher names on a regular basis. I'm horrible. And yours is so beautiful and different. Like, where does that come from?
My mom was pregnant when I was going to be Paige until the day before I was born. And then she read my name in a magazine.
Oh, okay. So, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. So it's Hungarian. It means energy and motion in Japanese. There's a Russian porridge that has my name.
Okay. That's very cool. Yeah. You just don't hear it very often. Hence, I was so worried about butchering it. But anywho, let's welcome you to the podcast. Thank you. I've found that most of us, kind of alternative practitioners got into this line of work and talking about some of these more complex issues because of our own, stories. So I'm just curious as to what's your background and how did you get into this line of work?
Yeah, everyone has a story, and I'm no exception for sure. I started out as a 19-year-old RN, bopping around in the ICU. I was a very high adrenaline junkie. I really loved intensive care, life flight, balloon pump team, all of those things. And I did that in my career for about 10 years. And then when I turned 30-ish, I'd had 4 children, had gotten married, had 4 kids, was running marathons. I'd been a skydiver. I mean, just pushed myself like I've never seen anyone else. And I, all of a sudden, which is how my patients describe it too.
I love the air quotes. All of a sudden.
All of a sudden, got sick, which of course isn't true. And so it was an overnight. I woke up and I had just 10 pounds of extra fluid and redness and swelling in my joints. Got in to see a doctor, was asked, do you have a family history of autoimmune disease? I said, yeah, I think my grandfather had rheumatoid arthritis. And I think he was in a wheelchair at the end of his life, and he died at the age I am right now, which is 58.
Whoa.
Yeah. And she said, well, you've drawn the short end of the genetic lottery, my dear. Here are 2 prescriptions. One is for methotrexate, which is a very strong cancer fighting drug, and a very strong non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug. And take these. And when you get worse, not if, come back, we'll change your meds. And I said, well, hang on. Is there anything else I can do? I'm very, very disciplined. I make my own food. I run a lot of miles. You know, what else can I do? And she said, that's it. And she just left, you know, and so people are actually still being told this today, you know, same drugs and the same party line about, I think there's a lot more understanding about food related to health. But, you know, when I started investigating, I was on my way home and I thought, my model of medicine that I've been born and raised into and practice doesn't have an answer for me that I'm satisfied with. I think I'll start trying to figure this out. And I always tell my patients and my students, like, if an herb had bitten me on the bottom, I would not have recognized it. Like, I just knew nothing about what I do today. And so I went on PubMed. In those days, it was a dial-up modem on my computer and it was half G.
Can you hear the squealing and the scratching in the background?
Anyone that can remember those days, that was what the world I lived in. And, you know, it wasn't fast. And I found an article on yoga and autoimmunity. And I went to my very first yoga class the next day. And I remember telling my running partners, I'm really scared. Like, I've never hung out with people that chant. I was so conservative. I was so conservative. And, you know, it's just really, really funny where I am today, which, I mean, I'm a queen of chanting now. And so it was really very funny because when I went in, I was fully ego bound and I'm looking at people thinking, I don't even know if I can touch my own toes. And, you know, of course, the first thing the yoga teacher says is remember to park your ego at the door. And he starts saying a bunch of stuff as we're holding our postures or asanas. And he said enough about this word Ayurvedic medicine that it got my attention. I went home, I looked that up online, and I was just really intrigued by this idea, the sister science of yoga that's 10,000 years old, that they had identified the fact that we are not all the same. And that indeed we are supposed to feed and water and care for ourselves differently at different times of life, different times of the day, different times of year. And that we're supposed to turn and ask our bodies what it needs. You know, it's not like the way the Western medical model is set up is evidence-based medicine. And there are these, you know, cookbook ways of thinking about things that are driven by labs and pharmaceuticals. And so I wasn't trained that way. And I remember sitting back in my chair when I read this line, autoimmune disease is undigested anger. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking, but I'm not an angry person. and really confused by that because I was a consummate people pleaser and perfectionist. And which is, you know, like say there are 4 P's to autoimmune disease now. And those are 2 of them.
Right.
And I remember thinking, that's so interesting. I wonder if the fact that I strap on running shoes and go for miles and miles and miles when I am stressed, I'm not digesting. I'm just emptying my tank of all of my energy. And, you know, we're blowing it off in a way like a pressure cooker, but I'm not actually learning anything. And so I started learning how to meditate. I started really diving into this idea of autoimmune being, oh, that means I'm attacking myself. There's nothing else to blame. So why do I want to die? Because I certainly don't consciously want to die right now. There must have been a time when my cells got that message. And so back in those days, we also didn't know about epigenetics. And it was a really good question for me to ask. I sat down and I started meditating and I thought, I wonder if there's a time in my life when I wanted to die. And I went back in my little breadcrumb trail of memories, and I found this little 10-year-old girl version of myself who was being sexually abused by the vice principal of the elementary school that I attended. And I went, oh, she wanted off the planet. And, I didn't understand anything that was going on. I tried to tell my mom. My dad was out to sea in the Navy. I didn't have the right words. I don't even think I knew what the word sex was. I was raised with no television. It was back in the, it was like 1975. I just don't think I knew. We had just moved here from Japan. I thought, I don't even think I knew like myself, what I was doing wrong that created this, And so I realized I was very, very confused and wanted to go away. And I realized that probably was connected. And so I dove into some really deep trauma healing. And within 6 months, my RA was gone and it's never come back. I did all the things too. I was a sugar addict, and I stopped eating sugar. I did a bunch of the things that I teach. I have something I call the Freedom Framework, where I talk about genetics and gut health and toxic load, of which Lyme is one thing, and trauma, and that they all are interrelated with each other. And I worked on all 4 of those at the same time without realizing it. And the load that my body was bearing started to come back into balance. And I was digesting, toxic load of the thoughts that I created in response to those events. Of course, sexual abuse wasn't the only trauma that I had. We all have had hundreds of traumas. Everyone has had trauma. And so, it was a really interesting process, and my body responded well. The genetics that are coded for RA from my grandfather stopped expressing themselves. And, I haven't had autoimmune disease for 30 years.
Oh, and that's beautiful. I'm glad that you brought up that point, is because sadly there are still too many people who think, well, it's in my genes. And so
right.
That's it. Right.
Well, here's the thing about the genetics aspect of it that's so important, Heather, is that it is in my genes. I can't do anything about it. And so if I were to go back to the way that I thought, the way that I drove myself, I could get RA again.
Right.
I always say it's not cured.
Right. Yeah, no,
it is in my genes, right?
Yeah. Right. But the epigenetics, right?
Exactly.
That's such a huge part.
Exactly.
You have control, right? And then I love the Ayurvedic stuff. Like I started learning about that about 9 years ago myself. And I wish, and maybe I still will dive deeper, because anything that is more individualized, like I love personality profiling on all points, whether it's astrology or human design or Myers.
Oh, I'm certified in human design.
Oh, I love that. What are you?
What's up?
What are you? Human design.
I'm a 1-3 projector.
I'm a 1-3 generator.
Whoop, whoop.
That's awesome.
Which, for all those who are listening, I'm supposed to help Heather know how to use her energy.
My husband is a projector.
Yes, there we go.
He manages my energy very well.
Yeah. And we're investigators and we learn things through our bodies, which means when we get sick, we get wisdom from it. It's really good.
Well, it's just like this sleep apnea thing I was just telling you. I just got diagnosed 2 days ago. And so I've been putting that out there. This is a part of my journey right now. Like I never knew. I don't snore, right? I'm just exhausted and my brain has been foggy. And I thought maybe I was dealing with a Lyme flare or mold flare or something. But yeah, it turns out I was having 40 episodes every hour and my blood oxygen's dropping to 83% at night. So it's a no wonder that I'm not functioning properly.
Right.
So, and it is. So I'm learning and then we put it out there, right? That's
right.
And that's why I fell in love with your work. And then I was totally fangirling when we were sitting next to each other at Mindshare last year. I was like, oh my God, there she is, And so I'm so happy that you're here, because I can like sense, even though I didn't know you, I could sense a kindred spirit, at the table. So,
and again, for everybody, we're investigators. We're what they call the librarian in the basement, right? We could take or leave people. We love to learn things that we can share with the world. So there is an energy about that.
Absolutely. 24/7. Can't shut it off even if I try. I think I'm in 3 classes as we speak right now. My husband's like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, I don't. But
it's a disease.
The martyr part I could do without sometimes.
I know.
Seriously. Well, that's awesome. Okay. Hey, this is a great spot. Actually, we're going to take a break for a commercial. When we come back, we're going to dive deeper into that link between early childhood trauma and autoimmune. And, we'll dive deeper into what are some of the things that we can do about it. So don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hey there. I used to not be able to drink coffee. I always reacted to it horribly. It hurt my stomach. It made me over jittery and would inflame me and cause histamine issues. But not anymore. Since I started drinking Danger Coffee by Dave Asprey. It's his next level of coffees. He came out with Bulletproof, and now this is the next level up. So it is mold-free, toxin-free, and he infuses it with minerals and electrolytes. So unlike other coffees, they can actually pull minerals and electrolytes from your system because it's too acidic. It actually helps replenish those. And so I don't react to it at all. I get to have my Bulletproof coffee with my MCC oil and my grass-fed butter, and I don't get the jitters, I don't get the crashes, and I love how focused and energized it makes me feel. Again, non-toxic, mold-free, infused with minerals and electrolytes. I absolutely love Danger Coffee. Make sure to check out my website, thelymeBoss.com. Go to the resource section and get yours. Awesome. Welcome back. Holy shit. If you weren't here for the first half, I highly recommend you go back and listen to it because this has been a blast so far. And we are touching on one of my favorite subjects because there's just still not enough people out there talking about the relationship of trauma, right? Whether it's from toxins, viruses, bacteria, PTSD, sexual abuse, divorce. It all manifests kind of the same way in our nervous system and, will lead us to being more susceptible to having autoimmune diseases. And I was, no exception to that rule. I ended up having 3 by the time I started turning things around. So
a little overachiever, you.
I know, right? I love it. I'm like, oh yeah, watch this as I dive deeper. So let's dive deeper into that link. The A scores, all that fun stuff.
Yeah. So the thing you just said about blanket and it's all the same and how it operates, I'm going to back up from that a little bit on a high level. Absolutely. And then the study that I did in 2013 called the Healing Unresolved Trauma Study. It's I created a model to help people really work with this. And I do it in retreat settings with or without plant medicine, depending on, where people are at with all of that.
Ooh, fun. You really are a badass. I love plant medicine. Sorry, go ahead. That's a whole nother conversation.
Well, what it does is a psychedelic will offer an invitation. It doesn't change you. Psychedelic medicine does not change you, and it's not a magic wand. But it offers an open space, a gap, if you're willing to walk into it, where you can turn around, you can look around at how you developed your perceptual patterns from childhood. And that hurt model that was part of my doctoral work, that is what kind of delineates how each of us as individuals get to where we are. And it's all very different. So how we work with all of the, again, multiples and variations of individual hurts is going to be unique to each one of us. And so then there's not like a program that you can take that heals your trauma. I don't even believe in healing trauma. I don't believe in transforming trauma. I don't believe in any of that. What I believe in is digesting it so that you get the wisdom bits that you're meant to have from it. And then just like digesting an apple, you flush down the toilet what no longer serves you, which is going to be like the victimization part of it that you are no longer in. the rescuer archetype or the persecutor, the drama that gets created from the way that you have perceived your whole life. And so what it does is it allows you a gap where you can start confronting your own thoughts. So I always say boundaries are meant to be set with you, by you, not out here. That happens afterwards, but you first and foremost set the boundaries with your own thoughts, the ones that come up that say, oh, I'm a highly sensitive person, or I'm an intuitive, or I'm an empath. And that narcissist that I was coupled with is a toxic person. And I need to have a boundary with all those toxic people. And what my research showed is that, and I definitely raised by narcissists, married a narcissist, which means I too am a narcissist.
Yep.
And so it's that willingness to go in and say, oh, like this maladaptive, covert narcissism. That's the flip side, what I call reverse narcissism, to overt aggressive narcissism that we tend to think of as like a narcissistic personality disorder. They go together, and that doesn't make that other person bad, right? And so it makes it so that you get to say, okay, so whenever I have a thought that others another person, or says, I have to have a boundary with that toxicity, I start inquiring how I got here. I sent my husband to jail for domestic violence many years ago. And I remember sitting on my bed in my bathrobe the next day in shock, going, I counsel women how not to get here. How the fuck am I here? I was just, God, this is so on me, right? It's not blame. It's not shame. It's I co-created with life this opportunity. So now what am I going to do with it? And so with that, it was like, okay, so he's doing his thing, but I need to come in now and start working with my child self. What are the voices? Where's the attachment disorder? What is the strategy that I created for my false self ego identity that links to that and get something from it, and then heal, And so that's what my husband and I did. And it was really, really beautiful, because you actually you can heal that if you have somebody with you that's willing to also do that level of self-confrontation. And so the science behind this is really clear. And at the same time, it doesn't get disseminated very well, I am seeing, because you can do a quiz that says, are you a highly sensitive person? I am. Yes, I am a highly sensitive person, and I'm an intuitive, and I'm an empath. And I can take the skill set that comes from that and leave behind the shadow aspect. The shadow aspect is the wanting to be considered special, the considering yourself as special, and so it's like this thing where self-worth comes from being of help to other people. My enneatype is a 2. I'm a Pisces, it's just all snap, 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 right?
When's your birthday?
Okay. Thank you.
When is your birthday? I'm like,
24th.
It's coming up. I'm March 24th, literally a month after you.
Wow.
That's crazy.
I know.
Go ahead. Well, no, but that one part, like when the whole narcissism, empath thing started really hitting big, even a couple of years ago, and the pictures were usually some small little scared person, and the narcissist was like a mean, scary lion. And even though I related more with the empath, I still was like, I don't think that's correct right there, right? Because they're making themselves the victim, and they're making somebody else the perpetrator, and they're not taking
you have a victim. That's the thing. You have a victim, and it's not to actually dismiss that, because it's not.
Right.
In your childhood, you were victimized, and then you have a fractal pattern that you're now self-repeating that has a karmic imprint to it. I just got done today, finished up a course on the karma of trauma, like the fractals that occur from that trauma that self-repeat.
Okay.
And it was so great, because the first time I taught this course for the Shift Network, I was really worried about saying, all right, we're going to take this little quiz about maladaptive covert narcissism. I was just like, oh my gosh, all these people that love to spiritually bypass
Right.
Of themselves as pure and unique and white light and all those dark smoke things out there that are just like, I thought, oh, and the thing of it is all of us have the big scary monster in us too, but we might do it in a more passive aggressive way that looks really nice on the outside. It's really candy coated. It's very hard to get under that because it looks so cute. And so it's the overt, like aggressively angry one that you can see.
Right.
And so when I did this course the first time, I was shocked because the people in the course loved finding this out about themselves. Loved it. They were like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense, because one of the check marks on covert maladaptive narcissism is that you're kind of like very, 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 very focused on your health and your relationships and you. And it goes into a degree that creates a little self-referencing. My health runs everything. My relationship runs everything. Whatever it is, it's my, me, I. And so you get to say, oh, the specialness, the battery that I use for my generation of energy is like that, right? Instead of I'm drawing from another person in this quite overt way.
Right.
So they all identified somewhere on that spectrum. They all were so excited to find out about it. And some of them returned to the course I just finished today, and they were telling me where they were at with it and how much they'd healed from it. This level of self-inquiry with compassionate curiosity, where you can see your shadow parts. You can realize that the parts, like Richard Schwartz is given the credit for coming up with internal family systems and parts work, but that was a lot earlier than him. That identification, Jung talking about these archetypes that we all have. And it's really important to greet them with grace and compassion and love and full recognition and bring them out into the light. Otherwise, we keep projecting them onto other people and judging them. So then that's where you get your overt narcissist that gets to come into your life. And then you have that mirror that you get to play with until you get your own boundaries set here. Then it's like a no-brainer that you leave that specific kind of relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. That totally makes sense. And that's kind of what I was saying, is that there's still a part of, yes, there's the victim, but there's still the part that you play that's creating this pattern.
Right.
Is what I was trying to say. And they were making it very black and white of, victim, perpetrator. And it's like, no, it's not that cut and dry.
Yeah.
It's not that black and white. And so, yes. So what are some of the other links between, childhood trauma that you found that are linking to autoimmunity?
Yeah. So, one of hundreds and hundreds of years ago, a Buddhist philosopher was given the credit with saying, instead of asking the whole world to be covered in leather, put your own sandals on, which is for the empath and the intuitive, the high sensitive person is like, put your own sandals on. So what happens is, if you're expecting the whole world to be covered in leather, like everything out here has to be okay for you to feel safe, for your senses, your sensory processing to be okay, right? Then what'll happen is, if you allow that to say, oh, this is who I am, and I just need everybody in the world and the stars to line up for me to be okay and to feel safe, then that's leaky boundaries with your own thoughts. It's not actually questioning that. Then it leads to leaky gut. Because, of course, nobody is going to get that. You're never going to have the whole world line up and cocoon you with bubble wrap to make sure you're okay.
Right.
And so then you get leaky gut because you're stressed all the time. and then that leads to an immune response. So the more intolerant you are to the world, the more intolerant you are to yourself. So autoimmunity occurs because you're at war with yourself, which is the world and everyone you share this planet with. You're not different from all of these people. You are an aspect of them, an aspect or a fractal of the divine, and we each hold our own unique pattern of that, and we make a whole. And we're not supposed to agree with each other. We're not supposed to be like each other. We're all unique for a very good reason. And so it's very arrogant to want to put on other people that if they just thought like me, it would be a better world.
My mother used to say that on a regular basis. And every single time she'd say it, I'd like gag in my mouth a little.
Well, I mean, whether you say it out loud or not, most people think that way until they start to recognize how arrogant it actually is, right? It's like you're removing, when you want everyone to like you, you're removing people's sovereign right to have their own experience of life, which includes you. Right. You don't like everybody. Why do you want to remove the sovereign right of another person to not like you? I mean, it's crazy when you start thinking about it. So that will create autoimmunity just in and of itself, is running around the world trying to control it so that it matches what you think is okay for you to feel safe, right? You want the whole world covered in leather. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what are some other little great nuggets that we have, and how do we heal this pattern, right? How do we move through it?
Yeah, so each person's different, because where you got your perceptual filters, your unique fractalized imprints about how you see everything. Because remember, mind is not brain. Everybody thinks the brain is everything. And it is darn sexy. You put the word neuro in front of anything, it's so sexy. And it's not mind, right? Perceptions are mind. So it's working with the mind, not the limbic system. Retraining the limbic system does nothing. All it does is stop downstream the flood that can happen when your primal reptilian brain gets activated. But wouldn't you rather deal with the thing that got that activated in the first place, the mind? And so training the mind and the mental, I call it heart mind habit, you can have another habit if you will shift it. And so I love giving people a really simple exercise to do, get a little bag of light colored pebbles and a little bag of dark colored pebbles for tomorrow, from the time you wake up until you go to sleep. Keep track of this is a keep your eye on the ball kind of a situation. You never go to sleep to your thoughts. And so start keeping track of all your thoughts, each one that comes up, no matter what. And maybe have your little pebbles in your pocket and take a pebble out that represents a thought that is not life affirming, right? Out of your little dark one, or however you have attributed them. And then do the same thing whenever you have a life affirming thought. And you know the difference between those, right? And so they'll feel different in your whole system. And just note how often you go to sleep to your thoughts, how often you really just want to go to sleep to your thoughts. And you want to go back to child space of wanting people to pick you up, to coddle you, to care for you. That's fair. Turn toward yourself and do that for your little child self, right? And just be like, oh, what do you need right now? And so doing that over a period of a week is really interesting, because you'll start to see, the second day when you do it, a thought will arise that's in your pattern of self-rumination from your default mode network in your brain. And you'll go, oh, I don't want to get one of those other pebbles out. And you'll stop it immediately. And that's actually very powerful, because a lot of people believe that just because they have a thought, it's a gem. Not true. Or because they have a thought, they have to see it all the way through. It's like they're just sitting in front of a TV screen and it has to just keep going. That's not true either. You can interrupt your train of thought at any point and you can shift it. And so over the course of the week, you'll notice you have more ability to do that. And you'll become very nimble with your thoughts. Oh, I really like this other pile of pebbles. It feels good at the end of the day to look at my pile of pebbles that's life affirming. So a lot of times people will say, practice gratitude, do a gratitude practice, write lines in a journal. That's great. And that's for how many minutes in a day?
Right.
So all day, stay focused on your thoughts.
That's brilliant. I remember it was probably about a year and a half ago, and I was berating myself, and my husband was like, "Stop talking to my wife that way."
Yeah.
And it took me a second to figure out what he was saying, but it literally stopped me in my tracks.
Yeah.
Because at the time I was talking to myself in a way that I wouldn't talk to my worst enemy,
Right.
but it was just stuff that has just been programmed. That's just blah, blah, blah. And so from that point on, I started paying more attention to these things because I was like, God, I wonder how often I'm talking to myself like that. Right.
Yeah.
And it was shocking.
Or about other things. Like, how often are you denigrating a president or a political party or a religion, or just name it, right? A gender, God.
Complaining can be very addictive.
Complaining. Yeah. Just notice that. That's not a white pebble, y'all.
Darn it. Oh my God. Oh, that's beautiful. So we're getting ready to wrap up. Is there any little last pebbles that you want to drop on us?
I think that's a big enough practice. It's huge.
That is absolutely
it's called
beautiful.
Developing Awake Awareness. And it's very much what people die without ever being awake to their own thoughts.
Wow.
And still stuck in the blame and shame child space of either or. There are no ands. Life is very contracted, very small in that space. So this actually helps you to start creating a little bit more spaciousness where your immune system can breathe. It doesn't have to have a knee-jerk reaction. It doesn't have to shoot before asking questions.
Absolutely. So shameless plug time of the show. Where can people find more information about you?
On drkeesha.com, drkeesha.com. Read Solving the Autoimmune Puzzle. Goes through a lot of like the freedom framework, how to solve your puzzle. Cookbook is the companion cookbook for it, of how to really individualize instead of an autoimmune paleo diet that is one size fits all. That's not the way it works, actually.
So are you putting more Ayurvedic slants to the food with that?
Well, you test, right? I give you like what you should be looking at to know what your body, this model, is asking for, and to know that's not forever. Some people are genetically programmed 10% that are a SNP carrier for actually needing to be vegan. And they have autoimmunity, and that whole like eat lots of meat and vegetables doesn't work for them.
Right.
So this is why there are conflicting study outcomes, like the China study, which says, only eat vegan if you have cancer. Right. And then other studies that show, no, it needs to be keto.
Carnivore. Yeah.
I know. And it's these two parties just like fight with each other. And I just kind of go, all you have to do is test. Like, ask your body, what does it ask? What's it's asking for? So it goes through how to do that. And then there's a apply to be my patient on my website, and I can guide that too.
Fascinating. I'm going to get a hold of that cookbook. That sounds amazing. My gosh, darling, thank you so much for joining us today. That was an awesome conversation. I knew it was going to be a shit ton of fun, and it was ended up being more fun than I could expect. So folks, if you got any little nuggets, glimmers of light, aha moments, please make sure that you like, share, and subscribe, because that's how we get this information out there. We're sick and tired of people being sick and tired of people being told that they can't overcome their autoimmune disease except for taking these steroids or biologics or, cancer drugs. Like, there's a better way, folks. So make sure that you're helping us spread the good word. And till next time, have a healthy day.
Bye, everybody.
If you learned anything, even one little nugget in any episode, please do not keep us a secret. Like, share, subscribe, and leave a review on Apple, on Spotify. That is how we get this information out there, and we change this paradigm one person at a time. I can't do it by myself. I need your help. Also, make sure to know that disclaimer, anything that you hear on this, you cannot hold Discovering Health LLC, Renegade Health Boss, the Lyme Boss, Heather Gray, liable for anything. Always consult your doctor before doing anything new. Do not take this as medical advice. This is your disclaimer. And then also, if you want to know the foundations of health, right? All that I talk about on how I get healthy, the absolute foundation: sleep, diet, exercise, what to eat, toxins, how to detox mold, all of it. you can get it in your own course at rhbcourses.com, right? Start your healing journey today as little as $79. Start today, rhbcourses.com. Stay tuned and thanks for joining us.